Okay, let's start off. So thank you for joining us today. The topic is how to be a wellbeing role model. So I'll let our speakers introduce themselves in a moment and a bit about what that question actually means to them. But part of the reason why we wanted to put this topic on was because from our side, we work with some great people and we see wellbeing role models in terms of HR and WHS stuff all the time. Doing incredible things, especially, as you all know, trying to steer the ship with people across COVID has been really tricky. I think part of this has been about watching people put together some great initiative and some really innovative things, especially in a time that required an incredible amount of innovation. But it's also been a time where being a wellbeing role model is also about authenticity. And even though I think most companies have really been pushing the idea of transparency and disclosure, it's a lot easier said than done, especially if you're coming from organizations which at the same time really prize productivity and performance. There can be some tension between whether or not you can really be open and authentic and at the same time protect your career and protect your interests. And I've invited some people here today. Lucy Noland is from OFX, which is a fintech company. Paige is from Who Gives a Crap, which is a social good company. Raylene Beavis is from Evergreen Garden Care, which is a garden conglomerate. So, and my name is Jay Spence. I'm the founder and CEO of Uprise. We're an employee assistance provider. So I just wanted to open up and I might start with you, Raylene, if that's okay. If you wouldn't mind just giving us a quick introduction to yourself, a bit about your background, and I was just interested to start with, what does this topic mean to you and what is it, why is it that you kind of wanted to come here and talk about this topic today for the time that we've got?
Okay, thanks, Jay. So yes, Raylene is my name, Beavis, and I'm the HR Director for Evergreen Garden Care. So we're one of the leading garden care companies in Australia. We produce all the gardening products that many of you are probably very familiar with: Osmocote, Scots, Lawn Builders, controversial Roundup. I've been in the HR industry for, I don't like saying over 20 years because it makes me feel old, but it's been that long. But I've been worked in a number of industries in human resources area, and I guess what makes this topic really interesting to me and why I like being part of this is that I have really been working in that wellbeing space for probably a good half of my HR career now. So I was being very fortunate with some of the companies I've worked for that were really interested in wellbeing and wellness. In one of the organisations, I was given a very large budget to work with, which was great. But for me, it's really part of, I guess, our remit as corporates and as companies and as HR professionals to understand that there's so many factors and facets that make up our business and generally how well our people can perform, and one of those areas is understanding their well-being. Specifically, I came across Uprise in 2015 at a HR conference, and I was really excited about the philosophy that Uprise had, which was very different to other organisations I'd worked with in the wellbeing space, and really bringing that into the business and being proactive around our mental agility as well. So very delighted to be part of this panel today, and that's a little bit about me and my motivation around wellbeing.
Thanks, Raylene. Lucy, I might hand over to you now to a bit about yourself and what made you want to talk about this for the time we've got.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jay. And look, I'm Lucy Nowland. I'm the Acting Chief People and Culture Officer at OFX. And as Jay mentioned, we are we're an international payments company. And I've actually been with OFX now for past 7 months. So I joined during COVID. It was a very interesting time to join, obviously, for a lot of companies, and also as an HR director as well, joining during that time and really finding our way through what is a really, difficult time for everyone. And I think, if anything, it's really shone a light on why and how important wellbeing really is for all of us. It's become an absolute workplace. If it wasn't before, which I feel like it always should have been. It has become even more so important for wellbeing to be part of the agenda from a workplace perspective. So look, I've got, similar to Raylene, I've got over 17 years of experience in HR. I've worked in mainly financial services organisations, and for me, wellbeing is particularly important. I'm very passionate about it and did a lot of work at my previous role at Goldman Sachs. Very excited to have Uprise when I came to OFX. It had just started when I came to OFX. And why it's so important to me, I actually had a health scare about 10 years ago, which was a pretty big one. One of those life-changing events where you've really got to use every bit of resilience in your body to actually get through it. And it was a real turning point for me to realise the importance of not only your health, but your mental agility as well, and your ability to just get on with things and know that it's going to be okay, have the right people around you and the right support. And so that's why I really wanted to talk about that today and the importance of it in our lives.
Yeah, it can be. I think it's tricky when you get a big knock like that wakes you up, and on the one hand, it makes you realise what you thought that you never could do or what you're capable of.
Absolutely.
And on the other hand, learning that is a pretty testing process. So I'm glad you got through it okay. Paige, do you mind just giving an introduction about yourself as well?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Paige. I'm lucky enough to call myself the head of talent and engagement at Who Gives a Crap. So as Jay mentioned, we're a social enterprise. We're predominantly renowned for selling sustainable toilet paper, which has never been more exciting than it has been in 2020. My background has been in generalist people and culture. I've got a retail background, and I think as with any PNC role, a big portion of that has been well-being and kind of making sure I'm really understanding what that means in the team that I'm in. For me, I think well-being in the people and culture space is kind of a combination of obligation and opportunity. I think, Jay, you talked a little bit about where it comes into work health and safety and ensuring that we're creating a safe place to work. But I also see a really big area of opportunity to actually influence the well-being of your team, but also of their families, and I think the community more broadly. And that tends to be how we think at Who Gives a Crap in general, and it's definitely how we've kind of embraced well-being and how we can kind of role model that. When I think about the topic of being a well-being role model, I think it really resonates with me in terms of how I feel most comfortable showing up. I think in people and culture, you can often forget that people look to you as a role model, and the way that you kind of show up in that space and the way that you care for yourself and put your mask on first and all of those sorts of things truly does have an impact. And without a formal education in psychology and well-being specifically, that tends to be my happy place in terms of where I can feel confident that I'm having the right impact and I'm able to do the right things. And that is where Uprise kind of came in. I've been aware of Uprise for years. I was really excited when I joined Who Gives a Crap to be in a really kind of digitally native team that I knew would really adopt the way that Uprise was developed. And yeah, that was kind of the perfect partnership for us to have that area of expertise that you could introduce the team to and you could lean on and kind of really complement the work we were doing in the role modeling space.
You're getting some props on the side from Andrew, who said that his delivery just arrived this morning. So
that was all me. There you go, Andrew. Thanks for the props.
Funny.
Some more props. That's lovely. So, Paige, I might just stay with you if that's all right. I know that you guys have a culture of, a lot of openness and transparency, and I'm just curious a bit about, like, what have you learned about within your organisation about that kind of balance between authenticity and openness, how to do it well? I'll ask the others the same question. So just interested in your account of what it's been like for you personally.
Yeah, I think I was really lucky. I joined my role 2 years ago, and it was shortly after a pretty big internal campaign around Are You OK Day and being really open. Authenticity is kind of at the core of how we work as a business and, a pillar of our kind of internal culture. And so I joined and was really kind of loving this opportunity to read through the level of openness of some of the team, including founders and contributors, people across the global business. We're sharing really personal stories and being really kind of I guess just generally open about what it had been like for them, and what kind of mental health challenges they'd been able to come across and kind of combat themselves. And so that was kind of a really great baseline for me to be able to work off. But it's also a place that, you know, comes with a lot of discomfort for some people. And we're also really cognizant of creating that psychological safety of, you don't have to share, you can share if you want to. And so I think that's kind of a bit of a balance that we're always trying to nail. In terms of kind of how we've facilitated that openness, we've got that, I guess, is kind of a big example of where we used a Slack thread for really open storytelling around experiences. But we also have little things that I think kind of contribute to that kind of culture. So it might be that we've got a Slack status of a yoga emoji, and it comes with, you know, taking a moment for myself. And that kind of helps the team identify that people across the business are aware of when they need to take a break. And then we also try and encourage our team to really help educate those around them on how we might pick up, like what cues we might look for and how we might pick up on when they're not okay. We're a very remote first business anyway, so that had always been kind of at the core of how we worked, but it's become really important this year. You know, obviously 2020 has served a lot of challenges for a lot of people, and we're kind of navigating that without any physical proximity to your peers. And so there's a lot of cues you miss. And so we try to create the space for people to actually share what it might look like to others if they're not okay in a digital environment.
Yeah, and forgive me if I'm remembering this incorrectly, but I think I saw that Who Gives a Crap actually gave like a week's worth of leave or a period of leave just to kind of recognise that people might have, you know, had some a lot of stress going through that period of growth that you went through.
Yeah, that was exactly it. You remembered correctly, Jay. So we've been doing a lot of check-ins with our team, and we know that there's nothing quite like just asking questions to tell you how people are. And so our VP of People and Culture identified that we kind of had this cycle of people feeling productive and better, and then worse, and then having a hard week and a good week, and, you know, the ebbs and flows, which is really hard for everybody to manage. And so she lent into one of our values, which is go big, and said, what if we just close down the business for a week and just force everyone to switch off? And so that was another opportunity to really think about, you know, how that creates psychological safety. People can be really nervous about closing their laptops when there's a lot going on. And so made the decision to give a really short turnaround, you know, show the role modeling from the top, and everybody switched off for at least 1 week and then had a slow week to give them a little bit more balance back.
Yeah, I thought that was a really great thing to do. Lydia in the chat has just mentioned that there's other companies that have done similar things. So you might have sparked a craze.
I can't take too much credit. That was my amazing team. I was personally on parental leave at the time, so I was all about balance. But yeah, it was an amazing initiative.
Raylene, how about for you? Like, what have you learned about authenticity and openness in either at Evergreen or at any other kind of your workplaces as well?
Yeah, look, I think I'll talk about Evergreen probably more so. I mean, we are a very friendly, open business, and we get to work with the best products and things that make people happy. As we've seen, that, you know, gardening has become a really important part of people's ability to manage just how they're feeling, being stuck at home. And so I guess from our authenticity and openness, you know, when I came to the business, I've only been here just over 12 months. My managing director, Andrew Martin, he was very open to bringing Uprise into the business. I'd used it before, as you know, today, in a previous business, and very open, the leadership team, to talking about the use of the, I guess, not so much storytelling of their own, you know, experiences, but also really promoting our wellbeing program, including the Uprise, especially when we launched, which was around when COVID hit, which was an amazing good time to launch. And we've really been able to talk to our staff. We survey them. We get them, encourage them to use Uprise all the time. Specifically, I've worked with a number of employees where I've been comfortable sharing a little bit of my own personal journey around, I guess, personal development through therapy over the last 5 years, and how, you know, not to be afraid of contacting the coaches and talking to them about things. So we are very open, and we're very promoting of Uprise constantly. And we continue to acknowledge that we know that the not just COVID, but actually being in our industry, it's put a lot of pressure on us. So we've been a very fortunate industry, very much like Paige, you know, anyone who's been in the industry where your goods and services are in high demand, and our potting mixes are like toilet paper, and we can't keep up with the demand of potting mix in Bunnings and other centres that we distribute to, and other products. So our people have been under an amazing amount of pressure and stress to not take time off, which we've been able to, you know, when we hit with COVID at first, we actually scheduled teams to have certain time off. We knew that everyone was all of a sudden remote, and we're very much, yes, we have our remote teams interstate, but in Sydney, we all work in the office together, and we're very close-knit, I guess, office-based team, including the executive and all of the other departments. So for us to all have to go and work from home every day was very hard for many people. So we did focus on wellness. We would have team meetings sometimes every day. Even the leadership team would have a meeting every day, and one of the things we'd do in the meeting was go around and say, okay, how's your wellness out of 10 today? So we were checking in and sort of saying, what's your score?
Yeah.
And we probably haven't been doing that as much lately. We should really get back on that again, because we're in the office with each other now, so we see each other. But in terms of, say, our Victorian team, you know, everyone knows that anyone who's got a Victorian team knows how tough it's been for the shutdown for Victoria. And we had not a big team of people, but we had enough people that obviously have been affected. Even if it's one, it's one too many. And we did give them special COVID leave. We tried really hard to actually give them training at home. We actually got them to do all the Uprise modules. We got them to do as much as we could do, so that, you know, they could stay engaged, come along to meetings. And it's really important, I think, to continue to talk the walk or walk the talk, as they say, around, even if you're not telling a story about yourself, which I don't say that we're quite there, that we all share, like, okay, I've had this experience, I've had that experience, but we are talking about the importance of wellbeing, and specifically around mental wellness. So it's very, very much part of our remit in our office. And we have a monthly sort of communications meeting where we all come together, called our company wide, and wellbeing is on that meeting, every meeting. So.
Yeah, I think you raise a really good point, that it's partly about recognizing where your culture is at, and then taking the next step, rather than taking a flying leap off the edge of the cliff into like massive amounts of disclosure. And you know, perhaps what you're saying is that you recognize that your culture was at a certain stage where the next step is to start talking about it in meetings and checking in, rather than saying, all right, let's talk about our therapy experiences and have which might be suitable for other industries or cultures, but I think it is important to, you know, take that pulse and say, well, where are we at, and where's the next logical step? Lucy, how's it been for you at OFX and dealing in openness and authenticity?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, just echoing from Paige and Raylene, you need to be authentic. You have to be. I think, and for me, it's facilitating a culture of wellbeing from the top. You need to be able to have your entire leadership team believing and feeling this is absolutely imperative and important to the organisation, and not just paying lip service to it, but actually embodying it. And I think that, you know, our CEO, who I know Jay knows, Scanner Malcolm, he absolutely is such a believer in not only just wellbeing in itself, but, you know, the Uprise app, what it can do, you know, your wellbeing scores, you're just ensuring that it is part of your, you know, everyday language as you're talking to your people. It just becomes part of your natural discussion, that, you know, how are you going? How are you feeling? You know, and, you know, even team meetings where you talk about your wellbeing and your wellbeing score, to Raylene's point, I think it's really important. We did a lot of work with our leaders this year as well, because we recognised that similarly we were an in-office environment with some remote, but not very many, and then going fully out remote, the role that the leaders play and the importance of the role of the leader in ensuring that their people are okay and supported during this time. And so we've done a lot of work on that. And one of the things we focused on was the shadow that the leaders cast, their leadership shadow, their impact that they have, and how that can have that really ripple impact. And being, you know, authentic, asking the right questions, storytelling, you know, being real, like having that level of vulnerability that shows that it's okay to have this conversation, you know, sharing, as I shared with you before, that, you know, we have those moments in our life sometimes where you have that moment where you drop, and you know that you've got people around you to help you up, or you ask for help, and you know that people will be around you and will be respectful and support you through that. And I think that that's really important. I mean, it's interesting because, you know, being in I guess more of the financial services realm, for us, it's about, you know, supporting, you know, financial safety as well. And market uncertainty has been a massive thing for people this year, and giving people as much certainty as we can around the fluctuation of FX and what's been happening has been a big part of what we've done to support our customer base as well. And so, you know, the same thing is that uncertainty with our people, to the point of like the small things like the yoga classes. Actually our head of North America did Peloton, because as you know, they haven't even been able to, and so he got the whole team into Peloton, and he even used it as part of their sales tactics to say whoever, you know, is able to get their sales up this month gets a Peloton. And it became like a wellbeing and wellness initiative to increase sales. But it was just the ability for people to be uplifted from that, because he knew the benefit of people, you know, getting that exercise and that adrenaline and supporting themselves physically as well. So no, I think it's really important. And in September actually was an amazing month for us because we had a complete focus on wellbeing. It was a wellbeing month. We had a September challenge. We had you know, we had speakers, we had Uprise involvement. We did the whole gamut, and it's still going. People are still involved and wanting to, like, they're counting their steps, they're still saying, how many have you done today? Like, it's just becomes part of, I guess, that culture. And I think that's where it all starts.
Yeah, I mean, I think culture really has picked up and run with well-being this year in lots of different ways. And I might come back to that point that you made about storytelling in a moment, but we just had a couple of questions come through. One of them from Jesse, and feel free for any of you to jump in around this. Any tips that you have for engaging a culturally varied team? 2 or 3 of our staff are from overseas or disadvantaged backgrounds. Anyone got any experience in those areas of finding out how to be more inclusive, especially if they're coming from, you know, perhaps something which is, sorry, thank you, coming from an economy that might not be in as financially the same position as Australia?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in and talk a little bit about how Uprise have actually partnered with us to ensure that the work we're doing has been
lots of props from you guys. Thanks for all the props.
but honestly, it was a really big part of our decision on which partner we engage with at the start. So for context, we've got a team in Australia, we've got a team in the US, we've got a team in the Philippines, and we've got a very small team in the EU. So we've got a really diverse group of people. And all of those kind of areas have really different levels of support for wellbeing, I guess, from a government perspective as well. And so we worked really closely with the team to understand how Uprise could support with that. And so one of the things that I didn't want was someone joining a coaching call and then getting told to talk to their GP about getting a mental health plan, and then finding out that they're actually not in Australia and that doesn't exist for them, and that's actually not a helpful avenue. So the coaches have been amazing for us at identifying where the local resources are and how we can kind of be really thoughtful about ensuring we're delivering a tailored experience for each person that speaks with somebody. I think the other thing is also just coming at it from a place of, you know, everybody's on a different journey when talking about their well-being, and I think specifically when talking about mental health. And so you have to kind of design for extremes. I think you have to design for people that are super open. They've maybe had experiences getting help before and they're happy to talk about it. And people who have actually never stopped to think about their mental health at all and might have some really difficult kind of moments when they do start thinking about that. And I think that's where the coaching calls have been really well adopted in our team. It's not just about looking at the content and assuming that it's going to be a one size fits all, but it's encouraging people to really stop and think about what that means for them. And it might be a really long journey for them. And I think that's okay. The other thing is also that the platform, I know I sound like I was asked to, this was definitely not part of my brief, I assure you. But the coaches do have their own personal profiles that each of your team can look at and choose who they want to speak to. And so we kind of identified at the time that you guys had a really diverse set of coaches, which we felt meant that there was some really great opportunity for our team to maybe identify with someone that feels more closely aligned with their experience or what they're used to as well. So I always kind of share that, you know, have a look. Someone might be really interested in football, and one of the coaches, I'm pretty sure, has a little bit of a spiel about their love of sports. There might be something there that helps you feel a bit more comfortable talking to them. So I think, yeah, have a play around with all of the different ways of thinking about it and think about the extremes. And I think that then helps ensure that what you're delivering will have some meaning to everybody, and it might just be a different kind of feeling for each of them. That was really long, sorry.
That's fine. Raylene or Lucy, did you want to add anything at all?
Yeah, I've got a little bit to add. I guess I'm talking more around employees that are based here in Australia, even if they are from other cultural backgrounds or disadvantaged. One of the things that that we're going to be doing, I've taken on myself firstly, and then we're going to be rolling out to a number of people on our Workplace Health and Safety Committee is focusing on mental health first aid. So that's an area that I think as part of wellbeing, you know, we're moving into, so that we've got more people in our, just me who's always flying the, you know, wellbeing mental health flag, but there's people that actually want to do that as well, and I've got a number of people, including management representatives, that are going to be doing that course very early next year. And the whole point of that is for us to be out, being able to talk to our staff in all different areas, you know, our production teams, things like that, where generally, like say for example, our production guys, they don't get to come along to a lot of things, you know, they're always working on the machines, and they don't get to join all the seminars, they don't even have access to computers most of the time. So having people on site that have skills that can talk to someone and then can actually identify that maybe that person's having a bit of a struggle, I can help to ask the right questions to help maybe suggest that they might go and see their GP, or they might be able to get help here or here or here. So I think for different groups of people, we need to have different deliveries or different ways of helping them with their wellbeing. So I think, you know, the fact that there's a mental health first aid certification available now for people to go and take and get around and start to utilise that in the workplace is a great opportunity to help people of all different backgrounds as well.
I totally agree. And I would say the only thing I would add to that as well is having wellbeing ambassadors within the organisation is a really great way of doing that too. And I think you need to provide them with the training, absolutely. So I think things like what Raylene's mentioned are absolutely important for that. But having people who are ultimately champions, and I saw a question earlier about how do you get leadership on board. Look, I think you need to create the right story around it. And you know your company, you know what is out there, you can see what's been happening. It's similar to the, you know, the story that you create before we actually launched yesterday on the United Nations, you know, Day against violence, domestic violence, elimination of domestic violence against women. It's a massive tongue twister, but we launched our extended domestic violence policy yesterday, which was a great thing for a lot of people because it again provides that safety and support for people who are going through these really difficult situations. And the way that I got the leadership across that was, I mean, it's very stats are useful, obviously. Domestic violence rates are going up. It's a similar thing around wellbeing and mental health. You know that it's important, and that the impact of having a workplace that is not at a good mental health level and wellbeing level absolutely means less productivity, less like ability as a company. But it's also our responsibility as an organisation, as a community, to ensure that the people are absolutely front and centre. But get your leaders to, if you've got Uprise as a product, get them to log on with them, get them to experience it, get them to see the impact that it has on them, get them to do the wellbeing score. Things like that are simple ways for people to realise as leaders, wow, look at the impact. I had again, talking about the head of North America, but he's using it as at his team meetings. At the start of the team meeting, they do talk about their wellbeing score. Like it's just part of now what they do.
Yeah, I'm just interested for Paige and Raylene as well, just from a storytelling perspective, like what was the narrative that you used to try to drive wellbeing, especially if you're also able to say anything about, like, did your narrative evolve over time from pre-COVID to COVID to where we're up to now, and how have you been kind of driving? Has it been something that's been really actively crafted, or has it been something which is more just kind of been a piece that's come organically out of conversations together? Sorry, either Paige or Raylene, whoever wants to jump in.
I'll let Paige go. I spoke a minute ago. That's fine. Yeah. More.
I think for us, storytelling has probably been a bit more of an organic piece of work. So I can definitely relate to people who may be coming at this from a perspective of having to kind of create something from the ground up. That wasn't my experience here. And so for me, it was kind of a bit of a snowball effect. It was leveraging the openness, leveraging the work that had already been done and just constantly adding to it. Uprise for us has become kind of part of the conversation whenever we're talking wellbeing. So, you know, we were lucky to kind of see some really great participation rates really early on and a lot of engagement. And so we've kind of leveraged that. And I think, you know, it's awesome to see how frequently the term is thrown around in any kind of conversation around wellbeing. I think the other thing for us is, yes, COVID has probably cemented the storyline around the impact that you know, mental ill health or just general poor well-being can have on you at work. But I think similarly, it's probably opened our eyes to how much of an influence we have over our teams' families and networks as well. And so we've tried to, we haven't probably shouted about it, and we probably could do a bit of a better job of bringing it front and center, but we've created like access to Uprise for our family and friends of our team. And we've sort of tried to create a story that's a little bit more holistic. It's not just about your well-being at home. It's not just about your well-being at work. It's actually kind of your, I guess, your ecosystem and thinking kind of big. And I think we've all gotten really close to each person's home over the last 6 months, despite being physically far apart. And I think that's kind of brought it front and center in terms of that organic conversation around what else is contributing to this. You know, what are all of the other kind of levers you can pull, and how can you bring it all together?
And how about for you, Raylene?
I think from my perspective, as when I came into Evergreen, they have been doing a couple little wellbeing activities, you know, like a massage in the office and kind of maybe done a few things here and there. So what I really wanted to do was, you know, while I'm passionate about certain areas of wellbeing, I wanted to make sure that we had a program that would cover everybody, because, you know, there's certain areas that you focus on at different times. So for us, it's been about, we did some surveying of our staff first. The first thing, I guess, if people don't have a wellbeing program or a wellness program, it's really good to, you know, get onto SurveyMonkey, maybe do a survey of staff, find out what they want. I mean, yes, you can load the questions a little bit, but still, you kind of want to know, you know, if we had this in our organisation, would you use it? Because it's really important. You know, because as HR professionals, I think we're very passionate about wellbeing and all that stuff, and we see it as, you know, not only is it a benefit that you can offer as, you know, we offer all these things as a company, but also we believe a lot in that wellbeing has a big contributing factor to people's overall wellness and performance. But when you get the feedback from the people, and they say, yes, if you had that, I want that, I'd have that, I would have that, then you can actually take that to your executive and you can say, well, look, we've surveyed the people, and, you know, this many percentage of them said if we had, you know, a 10,000 step challenge, they would do it. And if we had, you know, a wellbeing program, they would use this and they would use this. And I guess what I did was, whilst, you know, I'm very fortunate to have a very, very supportive managing director and senior executive team, which does make it easier. I have worked in organisations where I haven't. So you do have to sometimes look at other ways that you can bring data, and the real data to them is what do their people want. So we wanted to make sure we delivered something that people wanted. And then from there, just, you know, building on the program. Obviously, as I said, Uprise has been a big part of our program, and it's always coming in and really supporting what we talk about, you know, around managing some of the issues we've had during COVID. But also we've had a number of people that have had some difficult times in their families, as Paige was saying. We've used the program to support their families, to support, you know, in my previous organisation, I had an employee who died at home on a Sunday night, and, you know, we were able to use the program to quickly do crisis counselling. So you need to have those things on board as the HR person, or you feel like, you know, what can you do to help? But also another part of what I've been doing to kind of bring wellbeing into the general space of what we do is around the Workplace Health and Safety Committee, as I mentioned, but in our training and development program. So people that have training and development programs can think about, where's the personal development, where's, you know, where are there opportunities to offer something that is, you know, cost effective, it's not that expensive, and you can get people to utilise, like, say, for example, Uprise. And there's so many great modules in there that are not specifically all about just, your way of thinking, but also about, how can you be more effective and more productive and things like that, so you can manage all of the stress if you're in a stressful environment. So I think there are other avenues for people that may struggle with, which way do I get this across my senior executive team, or which way do I get the organisation to see this as really important. Try and link it to as many areas of the business as you can, and obviously the performance of the teams as well.
Yeah,
also, sorry, Jay. That's
go
all right.
for it, Lucy.
No, I just want to say to people, we're all on a journey here. Like, I definitely would say at OFX, it's a journey. We are not there yet. We want to be, like, we've started the building blocks towards creating what we feel like is an organisation that is very supportive and embodying wellbeing, but not to the extent that we want to be better. And so, what I think storytelling really does is that it allows us to understand a lot more, but also what I love about groups like this is that we can learn from each other and we can continue that conversation and dialogue so that we're able to all learn how to best be, wellbeing ambassadors and supporters in this type of an environment. So I just wanted to say that because I think it's important, whilst we're here talking about how to be a wellbeing role model, there is so much more that we can do, I'm sure, to make it that holistic, the full experience.
Yeah, I think it's come such a long way. It's kind of hard to think back that, a couple of years ago, I remember going along to a night that was like a memorial for a guy who in Sydney, because we're based in Sydney, who had taken his own life, and people had come along to it was partly to kind of grieve it. It was actually run really well by the bank that was putting it on. I thought it was incredibly brave of them to host, kind of 400, 500 people in a room. But that for me was a real eye-opening moment to see that there was a lot of people that wanted to talk about mental health, and a lot of people that wanted to start kind of being very authentic and open, and also organisations like this bank that had put it on in a very sensitive way where they followed up afterwards with people to make sure that people hadn't been triggered and had done it. And that for me kind of made me realise, this is now, there's a lot of willingness to bring it in here at those pioneering companies. And then COVID kind of brought the things that the pioneering companies have been doing for a little while. The rest of the group kind of came in on their coattails, because I saw people sharing ideas, and people had been able to kind of, I know there's some really great Slack groups out there that I saw people sharing ideas on as well. And I think it is obviously something that's still evolving. I thought we'd be back at the office right now. I'm still working from home, but I still feel like there's quite like we're not out of the woods, and there's still a lot of mental health issues that are probably out there. The previous research on pandemics actually says that it's likely to be 1 in 3 employees that has a mental illness this year, and that's basically saying it's all, it's not all of us. That's a very large portion of the employee population. It was 1 in 5 beforehand. And so I think what that means is it's a different story that we're talking about now. It's not a story of, mental health is happening to someone over there, maybe someone in the agency, but who knows. I think it's more about recognizing we've got is that a 33% chance that we might go through a mental illness this year if we're just going to roll a dice? That means that it's more of a conversation about saying, how do we recognize that this is kind of almost probable, and then make sure that the things are in place, for the culture, from a good cultural perspective, or from the right age group and how they want to access support and service, or from the right technology perspective, because younger people adopt tech and older people prefer face-to-face and things like that. But there's still quite a bit going on. Actually, I might come back to you, Lucy. I know you mentioned a couple of the initiatives that you had going. What are some of the ones that you're running at the moment around wellbeing, and any successes or learnings that you wanted to share?
Yeah, sure. Look, so I mentioned the Wellbeing Month that we had in September, and I just thought that was a great way of just we kind of had this moment where we realised every office, being a global organisation, was in such a different phase at that particular moment in time. We were coming into spring in Australia and we were coming into winter in the rest of the globe, and we just thought, look, it's a great time to really just focus on what is so important to everybody. And it's not that it wasn't being focused otherwise, but it was great to just draw attention to it for a full month. And we had initiatives on, as I mentioned, the September challenge, where we had teams of people who were doing their steps, and we had people who were running pelotons, and we had people who were doing various other sort of exercising activities, yoga, etc., which we've continued doing. But also on top of that, with partnering with Uprise, obviously, on a few seminars, and also we had some also other external wellbeing speakers as well, which I just think it sort of captured during the month. Actually, we kicked off the Leading with Wellbeing program with Uprise as well. And so what it meant was that we had all of these different components. You had the individual components. You also had the leadership components as well, which were really able to then have those open chats with their employees about wellbeing, or the team at the team meeting having a conversation and just asking the question, how is everybody feeling? But I would also pick up on what Paige said. The coaches that our leaders were speaking to, it was helping them direct how to have the right, authentic conversation about wellbeing. So the language that is appropriate, what you can say to have them get the most out of the conversation, they're the sort of tools that I think are really important to be able to have that open conversation. And I think I mentioned to you as well, obviously the Peloton was another initiative. And I mean, what I love is that we have now an open dialogue, that we are sharing the stories with each other. It's not perfect, as I say, but we're getting bits and pieces about what the experiences are. We're learning as we go. And we've actually got some really deliberate questions in our engagement survey that kicks off on Monday as well, around wellbeing, to understand more about their experience and what they're feeling, and how we can help them more.
How about for you, Paige?
From the survey point, but we are actually just about to close out our 6-monthly company-wide engagement survey, which similarly, I guess it's a no-brainer, is a portion of it's dedicated to how our team are feeling and how we can kind of support that. We're also running weekly little pulse checks that, when we first kicked them off, were called COVID check-ins, and now have become kind of just a general wellbeing pulse check. And we kind of use that to determine what little things we could be doing to support, but also where we've got more opportunities to go big, in that kind of, in a similar vein to the no slow weeks that we talked about earlier. So I guess the first obvious one is we're doing another no slow kind of period over the holidays, and really working with our team to understand how we can support them to truly switch off. We do suffer from a little bit of gratitude guilt in our business. We've had a very successful year. We work as a social enterprise. So I guess, people that are less fortunate than us are very front of mind in everything that we do. And so it's really hard, I guess, to help the team truly switch off. And so that's a big piece of work we're doing. But similarly, we're looking at like little tactical things that we can do. How can we make sure that our workspaces support our well-being more? We've gone, I guess we shared with our team that we're happy to maintain a distributed workforce for another 6 months or so. So how can we support that from a physical workplace perspective? And then, we'll be digging into all of the data that we're soon going to have to understand what our next big initiative looks like. So hopefully some of these conversations will spark some ideas for me as well.
I actually think annual leave this year has been a really big thing too, because it's been really hard, because people have had this almost difficulty of coping with taking leave during a time where you can't travel overseas. Australians are so typically offshore travellers that you almost save up your 4 weeks or whatever you get in vacation to go offshore. And so, it was, I echo some of your thoughts too, around you almost need to reset in people's minds that how do you take leave at a time like this, and the fact and the beauty and the need to switch off during that time. So even just talking about some of the stories of how people were doing staycations and what all the awesome stuff that they were able to do, it's, I know it sounds silly, but it actually makes a big difference to how people are feeling, and particularly some of our colleagues offshore now that are in lockdown, that you know, that's just, it would be a dream to be able to do some of the stuff that in Australia we're able to do right now.
Yeah, I think that's where that kind of obligation comes in a little bit as well. It's like, actually, sometimes you've almost got to force people's hand. Annual leave isn't just about going on a holiday. It's, you know, it's actually about getting some space back. And so, yeah, I think you're right. It's kind of taken a weird turn now where we're kind of probably being a little bit more directive than we've ever been with the use of leave.
Yeah.
I'm glad that HR is being the police force that's making sure that everyone's got on leave. That's a big shift. And Raylene, just finally from you, because you're lucky last today, how about at Evergreen? What's been happening for you guys?
What's happening for us? Yeah, so we've got a wellbeing program that we kicked off actually at COVID, and it was, as I said, it was timely that we kicked it off then, and that program has a number of areas in it. So we have what's called a wellbeing dashboard, which I won't name the company, Jay, but the company that we work with. And in that dashboard, we can actually promote Uprise, which is absolutely fantastic because not many companies let other companies promote inside them, but we can have our own calendar of events in there. And then every month it's updated. Like this month, we purchased an additional module, which was about men's health. So we opened that up for all of our, and not just male employees, but said to, you know, our lady employees, take it home, share it with your, you know, your husbands, your boyfriends, your fathers, your sons, etc. So we've got a very holistic program in wellbeing, but some of the other things that we do to help staff, and we are very similar to Paige. I mean, we're kind of stuck in this part of the world where we are very fortunate. Our company has had the best year it's ever had on record. So we kind of feel like, well, we have to let people have time off, but we're still trying to keep up with supply, and that's been really hard in our supply chain teams. But we have what we call summer hours. So we finish at 3:30 every Friday. Okay. And we make sure that, you know, mostly people go home at 3:30 on Friday. We also have a World Health and Wellbeing Day, which we have a lot of additional leave here. So we get our birthdays off, and we have a garden day and other things. But we brought this Wellbeing Day in where we said, you know, look, you've got this bank of sick leave or personal leave that not everybody uses, but, you know, let's use it to do something proactive with our health. So they take a day off and they get it out of that balance. So it comes out of their personal leave balance, but they can use it to do anything that they feel they want to, whether it be go and get a general checkup, get their teeth done, go to a day spa, go and have massages, whatever you want to do just to focus on yourself. So we're trying to constantly promoting our wellbeing. This coming year, we're looking at other initiatives, and again, we'll go back out to our staff, we'll get feedback. How did you find the program? What did you use? What didn't you use? What would you like? One of the things that comes up all the time is gym memberships, which is always kind of one of those things people say they want. I don't know if they really want to use it, but we're constantly looking at how we can help and support our teams with wellbeing. And I think probably the one we promote the most is Uprise, and I'm not just saying that because I'm here on your seminar, but it is the one that links into so many aspects of what happens in the workplace, and there's so many different ways that you can utilise Uprise as a manager, as an individual. Share it with your family. I've had employees that have actually shared it with their family, had employees that have had lots of struggles where they've just found the coaching so great just to talk to a coach on the phone. So if I would talk to anyone that said, what do you have to have in a wellbeing program? I would say definitely you have to have something like Uprise. If not Uprise, you really need to have it. So that's my last little bit there.
Wow, Jay, look at that. That's phenomenal.
That is a perfect way to close.
I think we've all got, you know, a stake in Uprise, clearly.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. Colin, apologies that we didn't get time to answer your question. Thank you to each of you for coming along to share your knowledge with us, and thank you to everyone who joined us online as well. I hope everyone is well and safe, and I hope you guys have a great holiday period as well. If I don't speak to you before then. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.